Solitude beats misery with company every single time. Think about that for a moment. Most pain in life stems from our inability to embrace being alone. Yet here's a secret nobody shares about reaching your 60s and beyond. What genuinely counts isn't what you imagined it would be. These treasures are subtler, less complicated, tougher to recognize. And if these elements remain in your world right now, you're not merely getting by, you're thriving. Pay close attention. Today, I'm revealing something important to you. The video thumbnail mentions 5 elements, but I'm actually delivering beyond that number. Track them while I speak. Verify you're noting each one down, because when we finish, you'll understand precisely how you measure up. And believe me, possessing just 3 of these puts you miles ahead of your peers. Tap that like button, drop a comment sharing your age, and let's dive in. Element number 1, a residence bearing your signature. Between 65 and 80, if you possess a dwelling, large or compact, mortgage-free or financed, with your signature on the title, you've accomplished what countless individuals fantasize about, yet never realize. Consider Ellen's story. She's 73, residing in Tucson. Throughout most of her existence, she rented properties, relocating constantly, always inhabiting spaces controlled by others with restrictions imposed by strangers. At 68, she finally purchased a modest townhouse. Nothing luxurious, nothing sprawling, but it belonged to her. She shared with me, "I needn't request permission to decorate my walls. I needn't fear eviction notices. This space is mine." That transcends mere property ownership. That represents self-respect. Here's the reality most folks avoid discussing. Past 65, owning your residence isn't about building equity. It's about continuing to exist. Property owners hesitate accepting elderly renters. Concerns about medical emergencies, legal responsibilities, complications if death occurs on premises. Harsh truth, but undeniable reality. Needing to relocate at 70, 75, or 80 means your possibilities vanish rapidly. Rental costs climb upward. Available choices plummet downward. However, possessing a home titled in your name means nobody can strip that away. You control a door that locks, a mattress that's exclusively yours, shelter that won't vanish overnight. Size doesn't matter, whether it's a compact flat, manufactured housing, or suburban house. Your name appearing on that deed means you've obtained something invaluable: security. Your family knows you're protected. Your thoughts remain peaceful. You're not one rent hike away from catastrophe. Ellen mentioned something else significant. She stated, "Every morning I awaken, I observe these walls and realize this belongs to me. Nobody possesses the power to force my departure. That sensation surpasses any journey I never experienced." Owning a place with your name attached means you've navigated life correctly. Element number 2, limbs that continue supporting you. If walking to your mailbox remains possible, ascending several steps, or standing independently happens naturally, you belong to a more exclusive circle than you recognize. Let me share Richard's experience. He's 78, living in Portland. 5 years back, he slipped on frozen ground, shattered his hip, endured lengthy rehabilitation, sacrificed muscle mass, confidence disappeared, independence vanished. He confided, "I previously walked 5 kilometers daily. Currently, I require assistance devices just reaching the restroom. I never understood how crucial my legs were until mobility disappeared." Your legs represent more than body parts. They embody liberty. Functional legs enable personal grocery trips, visiting companions, navigating your residence fearlessly, rising from seating without hand assistance, standing throughout meal preparation, moving without requesting help. The instant your legs fail, everything transforms. Assistance becomes necessary. Transportation depends on others. You require patience from everyone around you. Your universe contracts to the space separating your mattress from your recliner. Research demonstrates that past 70, muscle deterioration accelerates dramatically. Disuse means rapid loss. Remaining seated becomes hazardous. Weakness transforms into permanence. But maintaining the ability to walk, continue moving, stand independently means possessing what millions at your age have surrendered. Grace in Seattle is 76. She walks every morning without exception, not far distances, merely circling her neighborhood, 20 minutes maximum. She explained, "My joints ache. My spine isn't flawless, but movement remains possible. And while possible, I'll continue." And here's something extraordinary. Individuals nearing 80 still climbing multiple staircase flights daily exist. Still employed, still energetic, still blessed with mobility capacity. That's not coincidental. That results from utilizing what you possess while possession continues. Your legs form the basis for everything else. If they function, safeguard them, utilize them, walk daily, even if just to the street corner and returning, because losing leg function marks the moment your independence concludes. If independent walking remains possible, you're navigating life correctly. Element number 3, one companion you can genuinely confide in. Not multiple friends, not several, just one. One individual you can contact when thoughts weigh heavy. One person who actually responds. One person who comprehends your history and desires hearing more. Possessing that makes you wealthier than most people comprehend. Patricia in Milwaukee is 71. She maintains one friendship spanning 4 decades. They convene every Tuesday for beverages, identical cafe, identical seating. She told me, "We don't discuss anything profound. We simply converse." And somehow that encompasses everything. Here's what transpires as aging progresses. Companions vanish. Some relocate elsewhere, some become ill, some perish, some simply cease communication, and suddenly you're isolated. Research indicates that loneliness past 65 matches the danger of consuming 15 cigarettes daily. It elevates heart disease risk, dementia likelihood, premature mortality. But quantity doesn't matter. Quality matters. One genuine connection. One companion remembering your birthday. One companion inquiring about your actual well-being. One companion who doesn't merely speak, who genuinely listens. Gerald in Miami is 74. His closest friend inhabits another region entirely. They rarely meet physically, but they communicate every Sunday, identical timing for decades. He said, "I don't require numerous friends. I just require him." That suffices. Possessing one person in your existence who truly understands you, cares deeply about you, appears even when inconvenient. You possess what most individuals spend entire lifetimes seeking. And if that's currently absent, time hasn't expired. One cafe conversation, one telephone connection, one authentic moment with somebody, that's all beginning requires. Having one authentic friend means you're navigating life correctly. Element number 4, offspring who continue calling, not children requiring financial assistance, not children appearing exclusively during celebrations, children who genuinely desire hearing your voice. If your kids contact you simply to converse, simply to verify your status, simply to greet you, you've succeeded as a parent. Let me describe Sandra's situation. She's 74, residing in Denver. She has 4 children. 3 contact her weekly. 1 contacts her daily. She said, "I don't require constant visits. I don't require presence. I simply need knowing they still consider me." That's the authentic measurement of quality relationships with your children, not their material contributions, but whether they still desire your presence in their lives. Here's the difficult truth. Numerous parents between 65 and 80 barely receive communication from kids. Telephones remain silent. Visits cease. Relationships become exchanges of necessity. And it's not always the children's responsibility. Sometimes years of unaddressed conflict accumulate. Sometimes misunderstandings never received resolution. Sometimes just distance exists, emotional or geographical. But if your children continue calling you, still desire conversing with you, still welcome you into their existence, you've constructed something durable. You raised them, creating desire for continued closeness. You treated them respectfully even after adulthood arrived. You didn't attempt controlling them. You didn't manufacture guilt. You permitted them living independently while remaining present in yours. Daniel in Phoenix is 79. His son contacts him 4 times weekly. He doesn't need anything. He simply wants conversation. He told me, "I never anticipated this mattering so profoundly, but currently at my age, his voice represents my week's highlight." If your children continue calling you, not from obligation, but from genuine desire, you're navigating life correctly. Element number 5, sufficient resources to exist without pleading. Not fortune, not extravagance, just adequacy. Adequate for bill payment, adequate for grocery purchasing, adequate for medication coverage, adequate so you're not dependent on your children for survival. Possessing that means possessing dignity. Marcus in Baltimore is 77. He labored as an electrician throughout his existence. Never earned substantially, but saved incrementally. Currently, he receives retirement benefits. It's not abundant, but it's adequate. He said, "I don't require expensive possessions. I just need knowing I can maintain self-sufficiency." That's the distinction. Separating tranquility from terror. When basic financial stability exists, you're not requesting children's assistance monthly. You're not choosing between nutrition and medicine. You're not remaining awake nightly wondering about rent payment. Here's the brutal reality. Many seniors exist in impoverishment. They labored entire lifetimes, but nothing remains. They depend on their children who struggle themselves. They experience constant stress, constant anxiety, constant humiliation. But if you planned ahead, if you saved even minimally, if pension or Social Security or some income covers fundamentals, you've protected yourself. You're not wealthy, but you're liberated. Ellen in Tucson told me, "I don't possess surplus money, but I possess adequacy, and that's all I ever desired." If you can finance your own expenses, you're navigating life correctly. Now let me question you something. How many of those 5 elements do you possess? If you possess all 5, you're not just performing well, you're flourishing. If you possess 3 or 4, you're still surpassing most people your age. And if you only possess 1 or 2, That's acceptable because you're conscious. You're maintaining attention. And that consciousness provides you power to modify what's modifiable. But here's the situation. I promised you beyond 5, and I'm maintaining that promise because 2 additional elements truly separate individuals who are merely surviving from people who are actually living with vitality. Element number 6, liberation from bitterness. Can you achieve sleep nightly without replaying previous conflicts in your thoughts? Without despising someone from your history? Without resentment consuming you internally? If you can, you're liberated. Harboring grudges resembles consuming poison while anticipating the other person's demise. It doesn't damage them. It only damages you. Let me describe Vincent's story. He's 76, living in Minneapolis. For years, he despised his sibling. They experienced conflict regarding their mother's estate, currency, assets, matters seeming important then. They terminated communication. Celebrations became uncomfortable. Family gatherings grew strained. Vincent would recline in bed nightly, replaying the confrontation, contemplating responses he should have delivered. His spouse told him, "You're angrier at your sibling than he is at you. He's progressed forward. You're still trapped." And she was correct. One day, Vincent visited his physician. Elevated blood pressure, stress. His physician inquired, "What's troubling you?" Vincent described his sibling. The physician stated something that transformed everything. "You're the sole person compensating for this anger, not him, you." That evening, Vincent contacted his sibling, not to apologize, not to dispute, simply to communicate. His sibling answered. They didn't resolve everything, but they communicated. And gradually, over months, the resentment began fading. Vincent told me, "I didn't forgive him because he earned it. I forgave him because I required breathing again." Here's the truth about bitterness. As aging continues, it grows heavier. When you're young, you can transport grudges and continue moving. But at 70, 75, 80, that weight becomes insufferable. It affects your health, your sleep, your relationships with everyone else. Research demonstrates that chronic anger and resentment elevate heart disease risk by 45%. They increase cortisol levels, weakening your immune system. They steal years from your existence. But here's the beautiful aspect. Releasing doesn't require the other person's transformation. It doesn't require apologies. It doesn't even require contact. It just requires you deciding, "I'm finished transporting this." Sandra in Denver told me about her sister. They hadn't communicated in years over something so trivial. Sandra couldn't even recall what initiated it. One day, Sandra simply ceased contemplating it. She didn't contact her sister. She didn't send correspondence. She just decided, this doesn't matter anymore. And the moment she released it, she felt lighter. She said, "I don't need her apology. I don't need closure. I just needed stopping her from residing rent-free in my thoughts." That's liberation. Now, I'm not suggesting you must befriend people who damaged you. I'm not suggesting you must permit toxic individuals back into your existence. But you do need to release the grip they maintain on your mind, because every minute spent despising someone is a minute not spent living. Consider this. Who still generates your anger? Who still receives your blame? Whose name tightens your chest? That person might not even remember what occurred. They might be experiencing their life completely unbothered while you're still suffering. Is it worth it? Grace in Seattle told me, I used to despise my former spouse for years. Every thought about him generated anger. Then one day I realized I was the sole person still suffering, so I released it. Not for him, for me. She didn't contact him. She didn't reconcile. She simply ceased granting him space in her heart. And currently, when she considers him, she feels nothing. No anger, no bitterness, just peace. That's what liberation from resentment resembles. If you can achieve sleep nightly without transporting grudges, without replaying previous battles, without desiring harm on anyone, you've accomplished something most people never do. You've chosen peace over correctness. And that choice at your age represents the distinction separating living with joy from living with poison. If you can sleep without resentment, you're navigating life correctly. Element number 7, motivation to awaken. Not just waking up, but possessing something to wake up for. Perhaps it's your garden. Perhaps it's your grandchildren. Perhaps it's a hobby, a project, a routine that provides your day structure. If you still possess something that makes you desire exiting bed, you're alive in the truest sense. Let me describe Ellen's experience. She's 73, living in Tucson. When her spouse passed 6 years ago, she lost her motivation to rise. They used to share breakfast together, take strolls, watch morning programs. It was routine, but it was theirs. After his death, mornings became hollow. She'd awaken and think, why bother? She told me. I'd remain there for hours, not because of fatigue, because I had nothing to rise for. Her son noticed. He purchased Ellen a bird feeder and said, position this outside your window, just attempt it. Ellen did. The following morning, a cardinal appeared, then a jay, then sparrows. Ellen began waking to observe them. She'd prepare coffee, sit by the window, and watch the birds. It wasn't much, but it was something. She told me. Those birds provided me a reason. And once I possessed that, I started discovering other reasons too. Here's the truth about life past 65. Purpose doesn't just evaporate, but it transforms. When you're younger, your purpose is obvious. You work. You raise your kids. You construct your life. But after retirement, after your children are grown, after your spouse is gone, suddenly there's a void, and many people fall into it. Research demonstrates that people who retire without purpose are 60% more likely to experience depression. They're at higher risk for cognitive decline. They lose their routine, their identity, their drive. But the people who flourish after 65 are the ones who discover new motivations to rise. It doesn't need to be enormous. It doesn't need to change the world. It just needs to matter to you. Richard in Portland is 78. He feeds the birds every morning at 7 a.m. Not much, but it's his. He said, if I don't feed them, who will? They're dependent on me, so I rise. Patricia in Milwaukee is 71. She volunteers at the community center once weekly. She assists seniors with technology. She told me, those people don't know it, but they keep me going. I anticipate Wednesday all week long. Marcus in Baltimore is 77. He walks to the neighborhood cafe every morning for coffee. Same time, same route, same person behind the counter. He said, it's not the coffee, it's the walk, it's the routine. It's knowing I still have somewhere to be. That's purpose. It's not about achieving something monumental. It's about having a rhythm that pulls you out of bed. Now here's what happens when you lose that. Daniel in Phoenix told me about his father. After he retired, His father ceased doing anything? No hobbies, no friends, no routine. He'd sleep until midday, watch television all day, sleep, repeat. Daniel said within 2 years he aged 20 years. His mind grew foggy. His body grew weak. He surrendered. His father died at 71, not from disease, from absence of purpose. The physicians called it cardiac failure. But Daniel knew the truth. His father's heart failed because it possessed nothing remaining to beat for. That's the danger of losing your motivation to rise. Your body follows your mind. When you cease caring, your body ceases trying. But here's the good news. Purpose can be discovered at any age. You don't need a grand mission. You don't need to start a business or save the world. You just need one thing that makes you think. Today matters. Perhaps it's watering your plants. Perhaps it's calling a friend. Perhaps it's working on a puzzle. Perhaps it's cooking your favorite meal. Perhaps it's watching a show you enjoy, taking a walk, or sitting outside with your coffee. It doesn't matter what it is. It only matters that it's yours. Sandra in Denver is 74. She writes letters, old-fashioned letters to her grandchildren, to old friends, to people she hasn't seen in years. She told me, "I don't know if they read them, but I write them anyway. It gives me something to do, and I like imagining them smiling when they receive them. That's enough." Grace in Seattle is 76. She bakes bread every Sunday. She doesn't even consume most of it. She distributes it to neighbors. She said, "It's not about the bread. It's about the process, the kneading, the aroma, the routine. It reminds me I'm still here." That's purpose. Purpose isn't about grand missions. It's about mattering today. If you awaken every morning with something to anticipate, even if it's small, you're living. If you awaken and think, "I matter, today matters, I have something to do," you're winning. Because the moment you lose your motivation to rise is the moment you start dying. But as long as you possess something, anything that makes you desire opening your eyes, you're alive. And that's the most important thing of all. If you possess a motivation to rise, you're navigating life correctly. So, let me question you again. How many of these 7 elements do you possess? If you counted 5 on the thumbnail and thought that was it, surprise, you got 7. Because that's what life is, more than you expected if you're paying attention. And here's the real question. At your age, what's your biggest challenge? For some people, the biggest challenge is just awaiting the world to get to the point. No fluff, no filler, just the truth. And if that's your biggest complaint, you're performing better than you think. Because climbing stairs, remembering yesterday's lunch, balancing on one leg, laughing often, keeping your friendships, cooking for yourself. Sure, you might forget where you parked your vehicle sometimes, but if you're still accomplishing all of this, you're winning. You're absolutely winning. If you made it this far, leave a comment with your age. Let me know which of these 7 elements you still possess. You're not just surviving, you're living with purpose. And remember, the fact that you're here watching, learning, reflecting on your life, that already sets you apart. You're not just surviving, you're living. And that's navigating life correctly. If you found value here, hit that like button for SAGECAST and share this with someone who needs to hear it.